group. We have content to produce tonight, to present to you tonight, and really is going to benefit all of you. So tonight we're going to be giving you updates on the BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 project. Have we started the recording for those online? Let's do that now if we haven't.
Yes, we have started recording right now.
Thank you. So my name is Brent. First, I'm going to be helping to facilitate tonight. I'm the project's engagement manager for the project. And let's get started, okay? Some of you may know we wanted to start tonight's meeting in memory of our dear friend Chris Esparza. And my slides are not advancing. So for those that know Chris, he was a really strong community leader. He passed away a couple months ago. And in memory and to celebrate Chris really in his spirit tonight, all that he gave this city, all that he gave this community, all that he gave to all of us, we wanted to have a moment of silence. So for those that knew Chris, those online or those that are in the room, just encourage you all to think about Chris or Chris's spirit and his life here with us. Okay, so with that, let's have a moment of silence in honor and reflect on Chris. Thank you. Thank you so much. So for tonight, we've kind of rearranged the structure and format a little bit. So we're going to have multiple spaces for dialogue and opportunities for you to contribute, like 5, 6, 7 of those throughout the presentation tonight, where we can have some questions back and forth. We're also going to do some kind of live feedback exercises that I'll walk you through how to do that in the meantime. So today, first up, we're going to have Tom, our Chief Capital Projects Delivery Officer, present our Phase 2 update to you all. He's going to also talk about the budget. We also have other members of our team, Monica Bourne. You all have not met Monica yet. She's new to our team. Welcome, Monica. She's going to be presenting along with Greg Tebow on our cost-saving candidates tonight and some how those relate to work. And we have Bernice, we know well, she's our External Affairs Director for the project. She's going to be presenting to you all on our CWG referral at the end of tonight. We're going to let you know what staff's been working on for the referral that our board gave us about how to engage with you, strategies that we have for the CWGs moving forward. Okay, then as always, you'll have time to report out. So think ahead. Do you have meetings for your organizations coming up? Do you have events? Are there news, successes, accomplishments, anything you want to share with the rest of the community here or staff? That will be your time. Okay, and then we're going to conclude, of course, with next steps, like we always do. So we're not going to do roll for all the groups here tonight. We're going to skip ahead on that. We have staff that's taking roll, but I just did want to acknowledge for our members in the room and for those online, thank you so much for being with us tonight and giving us your time to update you on the project. Okay, so let's see ahead here. Okay, so a couple of important upcoming dates. We do have scheduled CWG meetings on your calendar for November. We're going to hold those, right? So as the project's advancing, we want to make sure that that's locked in case we have things to present in November. We also have an important workshop this Friday. You all are actually getting a preview of those. Or you have a question?
Slide later in your deck here has CWG meetings 13, 14, 15.
On a different date. Okay, we'll make sure to get members the proper dates. Thank you for that, Bert. Our workshop on Friday is going to be a less structured board meeting. This is a time where our board of directors can kind of have discussion. They're going to be hearing the same content that you all hear tonight. So you all are actually getting a preview of that. We're going to be providing kind of a roll-up summary of your comments, your thoughts to the board on Friday as well, okay? And then we have some upcoming oversight committee meetings. That's where certain members of our board meet and discuss topics on the project, okay? Kristen, our normal facilitator and CWG point of contact, she'll be making sure you're all in the loop, getting those emails connected and making sure you know what's coming up. So tonight, what are we doing here? We have a key couple of objectives. We want to give an overview for you all, which Tom's going to talk about the budget gap that we now have in the project. We really did receive an incredible commitment from FTA for our federal dollars, and it is around $5 billion. But we do still have a gap, and we want to talk about some ideas with you all here that our team has been really working on, that our board asked us to work on. We're calling those cost-saving candidates. So we're going to have a series of slides that we're going to walk you through that the team has been, our engineering team has been looking at for ways, kind of coming back to the drawing board and just looking at the project again with fresh eyes to see, are there ways we can still save money to get us to that point, to keep the project moving forward, to keep the schedule moving forward, and delivering the project to the voters as we continuously promised. Okay. We're going to, our presenters will talk to you about the criteria here. These are important. These are kind of the lenses that the team has looked at when they've looked at these candidates. So we have two different sets of criteria. The first cost saving candidates, we'll use the ones on the left here. And then we have some more user experience, public facing criteria for some of the station ones. Those are the things that affect the public most. Okay. All right. We're going to do a little practice. This is new, but we've heard from you all that you want to have more interaction, you want to have more collaboration during the meeting. And so after we present some of these candidates, we're going to be getting kind of a gut check from you all. Where are you with these candidates, right? We want to hear from you. We want to recognize too that these are in a point in time. We're not making decisions tonight, but we really need to know from you all, where are you at? Is this a good idea? So we're going to be using something called the fist of 5. So if you think the idea is just incredible, you're going to be like, yes, 5, please. I am aligned. I am in agreement. Staff should keep working on that. That's innovative. That's help optimizing the project. Maybe you're in the 3 range. You know, you don't have any big qualms. 1, you probably have some comments. So during the discussion comment, I'll be looking for those folks. Staff will be noting those. We'll have some time for you to kind of raise your hand, maybe have some comments or questions for staff. And then 5 is just, I'm not there yet. All right. And you may have a reason. So practice question, really key for the project. Is a hot dog a sandwich? I see a 5. Ooh, definite. Ooh, lots of 5s, lots of fists. Ooh, a 2. That one's kind of odd. That's an odd answer. I don't know where. It's kind of in the middle. Where are we with people online? We got some 5s online, 4s. So our team is going to be updating these live. Okay. So after we do the cost saving candidates, I may ask you to hold your hand up a little bit longer than you're comfortable doing so our staff can note those. And so you can see your peers in the room for those that are here, where the rest of the group's at, and you can see our virtual members as well. How many people do we have online right now, Andre?
We have 35 people.
So we've got 35 people online. So we have a lot more people online tonight than we have in person, just noting that, okay? All right, so we're going to get moving forward. So Tom, if you could come up and start your phase 2 update, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Thank you all for being here. We can go to the next slide. I'm Tom McGuire. For those of you I haven't met already, I'm the Chief Mega Project Officer, which means I run the BART program for VTA. And before we get into the details, the station by station, and get this to work.
That's Scott.
Before we, I'm not getting the advance on this. I'm going to give an overview of where we are in the program. So, there we go. So for today's agenda, we're going to go through cost saving candidates for each of the stations, and some of which cut across all the different stations. As Brent said, we're going to talk about some things that are not related to the stations. They're related to the tunnel. They're related to the storage yard. They're related to some of the design criteria we're using to design and build BART. We'll take a pause for discussion, and then we'll get into things that are much more related to the way the stations are designed, laid out, park there, how passengers use the station, and get your feedback on that as well. To set the stage for this, I want to say that we passed a really important milestone with our funding partner, the Federal Transit Administration, on August 1st. The FTA told us that they are going to give us the biggest award, commitment of federal dollars to any project west of the Hudson River. That's great. Came to San Jose, didn't come to Chicago, didn't come to Los Angeles, you came here to Santa Clara County. That's great. The problem was they guaranteed us $5.1 billion, and we were really hoping for over $6 billion. And the result of the difference between those two numbers is what we're going to call throughout the rest of this meeting for the funding gap for the project. There are two ways to close the funding gap. One is to go find some more money, and my team and I are actively doing that. We're looking for sources outside the county that could help close that gap. The other way we can do it is to make the project less expensive, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. The size of the funding gap has two components. First off, it's at least $700 million because that's the gray piece of the pie over on the right side that doesn't have a funding source against it. And then on the left side, our board did make an important policy decision back in May to devote some uncommitted or unobligated Measure A money to potentially closing funding gaps in both the BART project and the East Ridge to BART Regional Connector Light Rail project. But it's our hope not to tap into that, at least not at this point in the process. So when we talk about the size of the gap, you'll hear us today, the board members will hear us publicly in the media talking about a gap between $700 million and $1.2 billion. That pie chart explains where those numbers come from. It's also important to set the stage to say that this is not a complete blue sky conversation. We're not going to share with you tonight ideas about completely redesigning BART from the ground up, moving stations, putting stations in different neighborhoods that they've been planned. We want to maintain the integrity of the project that has gotten so much support, both here from voters over the years, but also from our federal partners. And we want to maintain our commitment to get this open no later than the spring of 2037. And to do that, we're using what we've been calling some guardrails. The first guardrail is we have environmental records of decision and certifications of our environmental documents. We don't want to reopen those conversations. We'd set our project back 2 or 3 years if we were to step back from commitments we made to all of you and all of your neighbors in terms of environmental and community impacts. So we want to stay within that guardrail. Secondly, with ridership forecast that 55,000 riders will take part in Silicon Valley on day one. We don't want to do anything that would cause the federal government, which ultimately establishes the ridership level, or our own modelers to doubt that number. And then finally, we don't want to introduce massive new risks into the design that might make it hard for us to move on to the next step in the federal process. This timeline illustrates how we're marching along towards what the federal government calls an FFGA, a full funding grant agreement. That's the milestone at which we can unlock that $5.1 billion and start spending it right here in the county. To get there, we've got to go through a risk assessment. We've got to do a lot of documentation, but we also have to show a balanced budget. We have to show the scope of this project matches the sources of funds we have for this project. It is our goal to work with you, all the communities in San Jose and Santa Clara, ultimately with our board of directors, to make the hard choices and trade-offs, to bring the budget into balance, and to continue to march along this timeline towards that grant agreement in 2025. So that's the context we're working within tonight. Maybe that's some of the boring budget and schedule stuff, but it's about to get interesting, and I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Monica Bourne, who's going to walk through all of the ways we could align funding with the cost savings in non-station lived areas. Take it away, Monica.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Again, Monica Bourne, new to VTA, started here in April. So still drinking out of a fire hose around here. Okay. So, but excited to be here and to be part of this once in a lifetime opportunity to work on this program. So I'm going to start off with the evaluation criteria. And again, as Tom said, focus on the non-station areas, and we'll get into that, but specifically the tunnel, the yard, and the criteria are the areas that we're going to be talking about here. So as far as the evaluation criteria that we used for these specific areas of the project, We've got four criteria that we use, starting off with the cost savings. That's pretty straightforward. Are we able to save on the cost there based upon what we're calling a draft rough order of magnitude ROM cost? Year of expenditure is the type of cost that we're using here, and we've got it indicated as a range. The other three criteria that we're looking at, O&M, operation and maintenance, costs to basically run the system, is the definition for that. Construction schedule, again, we've got a goal on when we're trying to open the system. Are we able to save on that timeline? And construction logistics, which concern how we're building the system out there. Indicators for all those three are basically positive change, no change is shown by equal sign, and negative change, meaning are we having a negative impact shown by the negative sign, and NA for not applicable. So we'll move on into the first item, tunnel, and we're going to start off with the interior of the tunnel structure. So what we're talking about here is reconfiguring it, still basically having two tracks in our single bore system. And cost savings right now, we're looking at about 150 to 170 million ROM costs, year of expenditure again. The top one, what we're calling here, the current cross section is more of a robust type of structure that we are looking at. And then right below it's the proposed one, which is built more efficiently and has less concrete in it. So as far as our initial assessments across the board, we see it as a positive effect on our cost savings endeavor. Moving on to our next one, the muck off-haul option. So this is basically taking the material that we're excavating out of the tunnel as we build it. Cost savings right now, we're still looking at it. We're still in the early process of it. Overview of it, we're looking at one area that we're looking at is taking that excavated material, the muck, and putting it into our salt ponds just north of our site. And we're looking at also potentially using rail to off-haul it, or potentially even to reuse it on site. As far as our initial assessment there, it's looking like it's about the same as far as schedule and logistics, but there still is a potential cost savings that we'll know more in the next couple of weeks as we look into it more closely. Next one is tunneling. And in this case, we're looking at trying to tunnel both on the east and the west portals, both ends of our project at the same time. Right now, the cost savings is still also a TBD, still looking at that more closely right now. As far as on the east portal side or on the east side of our project, we're looking at doing the twin bore, and on the west side doing the single bore. Our initial assessment there is that the O&M cost, we would be savings because it's a similar type of system that's currently used by BART at this time. Schedule looking like it's about the same. Construction logistics a little bit more challenging. Moving on to the next topic, which is our yard. And the yard, if you're not familiar with it, it's basically where we put our trains at night to let them rest and also maintain them and get them ready for the next day. The way I'd like to call the yard. But as far as cost savings, 100 million to 300 million is what we're looking at with the various options at this point in time. We are looking at ways of reducing capacity as far as storage, some of the maintenance areas, including the buildings and facilities there. This is a trade-off, though, between what we can do there and balancing it with the O&M and the capital costs. This one right now, as far as our initial assessment, we're thinking that there's a schedule savings on it, but the O&M costs, like I said, we have to look at the trade-off between saving of the capital costs and also the cost to basically run the system. Moving on to the next item, and this is the last one that I'll be presenting. This is on criteria and requirements. And this one concerns basically the design requirements that we use in order to advance the project as far as designing it to get it out into construction. Our cost savings right now is a range of 50 to 90 million. And again, concerning about the design requirements that we basically have put together, our documentation that we share with BART, and then look for discussion and approval from them. Some areas include power to our project traction power facilities, looking at the communication system along the alignment, and then optimizing our ventilation system. As far as our initial assessment there, basically positive across the board on those various categories too. And I'm going to stop there. Okay.
Somehow our first two speakers have brought us up in time, which is great. Thank you for that.
Sorry, I was too close to the speaker.
All right, so we are back on time, which is great. So let's practice some voting using our Vista 5, okay? So this is going to be for all CWG members, okay? So members who are present in person, CWG members who are present virtually. This is an opportunity for you to vote, okay? So I'm going to go down through each of these 5. I'll give you some quick reminders of what they are. So we want to ask you where you are with the candidate for tunnel interior reconfiguration. So that was one of those big savings items, optimizing the tunnel, making it more efficient. So you think that this is a good idea? Are you kind of neutral about it? Not quite sure. So as we have votes come in online, we can put those up. Anyone willing to show a hand? I see Tony showing he thinks that this is a good candidate to pursue. We've got a 1 in the room. A couple more 5s, 4s. Okay. All right. Can I get my team to put those up for the in-person participants? Did everyone capture those? Sorry, who do we have doing in person? Okay, if I can get hands in person one more time, sorry, we're practicing, okay. 4, 5, another 4, 5, a 1 and a 4. All right, hold those up, one more second for Adriano. Great. Okay, let's look at our next one here. So muck offal, so this is our salt ponds option, so how can we more efficiently take the soil out of the tunnel, deposit it into the bay, or looking at other options as well, okay? So where are you in agreement with this option right now, or this candidate? This has a lot of environmental benefits as well. Okay, we have 1, 4, 2, and 3 internally. How are we doing virtually? I can sense we're gonna have some discussion on these, that's good. All right, so virtually we got some 1s. So they're not feeling like we need to talk about this. Oh, interesting, people are maybe interpreting that 1. Or we do need to talk about this, excuse me, I apologize, yeah. Okay, and then we have 3s and 4s and 5s, okay. All right, next up. Tunneling using twin bore between 28th Street Station and the East Portal. This would allow for concurrent tunneling. So single bore tunneling from the West Portal all the way to 28th and concurrently tunneling with twin bore machines between 28th and the East Portal. We don't yet have a cost on this, but we do think it has some potential.
Yes, question?
We will have questions next time. Yep, okay, I see some 5s in the room, 2 5s, 4, 4, and a 3. And then if we could get our virtual numbers, so people virtually, they're at 3 and 4, okay? Thank you, members, for following us along online, we appreciate it. So this way you all can see what your peers are voting for as well, okay? All right. Anyone else online there? Not getting anyone else online? Okay. All right, new hall yards. This was another potential large cost item. It had a range associated with it, about 100 to 300. This would reconfigure the inside of the yard, potentially have smaller footprints, reconfigure some of the things we need in there, okay? So where are you at on this candidate? CWG members, okay? Fives, 2 5s in person, 4, 3, 3 and a 4. Okay. All right. We had a lot of virtual members vote on the first one. Maybe you're reserving yourself for questions. Anyone else? Any more than 3 on this one online? Okay. Thank you all. This is one of the biggest voting exercises. Most of the other ones are a bit quicker. Criteria. So these are the standards that we have to kind of follow to build and design the project. BART has standards, other agencies have standards. So we're looking at maybe asking for some variances from those agencies on those standards or changes. Our partners have shown some willingness to work with us on some of these things. This had a cost saving range of 50 to 90 million. Okay. So this one is not very public facing necessarily, but it could change some things in the design. I have 1 5 internally, 4 5. Remember, this is like kind of where you're at right now too, right? We're not making decisions tonight, but this is really helpful for our team here. Another 5, 3. And on line 2, we're also at 3s and 4s. Okay, all right. Okay, let's open it up for discussion. Okay, so we've got about 10, 12 minutes to discuss these items. So I know you all are going to have questions. So we're probably not going to get to everyone for every item. It may not be possible. So if you could keep your feedback, try and keep it to 1 or 2 points. Try and be direct for staff. If you think there's other opportunities with these things that staff didn't tell you about or other opportunities related to them that you want to let us know, we would love to hear your suggestions. Give us constructive feedback. Can you clarify? What's the next step on this thing? You can ask us those direct questions. We do ask that you just keep your responses to 1 or 2 minutes so we can try and get as many people speaking as possible. I'm going to start with this one in the room, so we'll take 1 or 2 comments or questions, and then I'm going to go to virtual, and then if we have more time, we'll switch back. Then next time after we vote, I'm going to start with the virtual participants. We do have more folks online tonight, so I will recognize that, and then come back to the room. All right, so hands, and if my experts can be ready too for comments or questions, that would be great. All right, let's start with Bill. Bill.
Where do you want to start? These 4, 5.
You can start with any of the items.
Just if you're tunneling between 28th and the east quarter, that will involve a whole new machine, right? A digging machine.
Yes, it would. It would involve us getting some smaller tunnel boring machines that are more standard size to bore from 28th to the east quarter.
And then how would you get the signal bore machine out?
Anyone want to answer that?
Can you hear me now? Okay, all right. Yeah, so for the single bore, it would come out at the 28th Street station. So both the single bore would come out at 28th Street station, the twin bore would start at the 28th Street station. We've got room there.
And that would end up being a cheaper alternative?
That's the thought process. We're still looking at it right now. It might be less expensive and then also might help with our schedule too.
Some of the costs are being generated right now. We may have those at the workshop. We may have those at the oversight committee meeting the following month. So some of these numbers are going to kind of update in real time.
And then one more real quickly. If the tunnel interior reconfiguration, if you've got a way that's more efficient and you think better, why not just
Yeah, maybe just leave it.
All right, okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yep.
So why not just use it? We're still doing our due diligence and just making sure. Right now with the tunnel design, it's about 85%. So we want to make sure that it looks like this is a good candidate. And as far as the cost, and then also again, get in the schedule with it too. So we're just being careful.
All right, let's take one more in the room. Chris.
Thank you. I'm sure this was probably answered when we had our meeting at Santa Clara University though, but the soil, is the soil already tested to be sustainable before it gets dumped? And I'll be so or Ravenswood.
That's a great question, Chris.
Yeah, so we are doing additional analysis on that. That's part of the reason why we're not sure about the cost. So there is an environmental analysis that's being done right now to verify that. And it's not done yet. There's been some soil testing, but not to what we need it for this candidate.
Okay, we're gonna go online, so if you could indicate if you have a question or speak by raising your hand online, that would be great.
We have Jonathan Evans online.
We have Jonathan. Jonathan, why don't you ask your question or provide us your comments? Thanks.
Yep. Hello, audio working for me? Coming through?
We hear you in the room. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so I had a couple questions. First, I just want to comment. It's a little hard to really give a lot of feedback on some of these, like the tunnel interior and stuff, because like cost savings is always good, but I don't quite think we have enough information on what's being traded off. So that's where it's hard to like give maybe a high five to some of these. But generally, yeah, cost savings seems great. So that would be my starting point. But I did have a couple of questions. The dual bore versus the single bore tunnel. If the dual bore is less expensive for the twin bore for that one section, I did have some questions about like, are there other opportunities to use twin bore throughout the project for cost savings? Because, if it saves money in one section, I'd like to understand if it saves in others. And then finally, the second part I had a big question about was the Newhall Yard facility. You mentioned there's cost savings there, but it's not clear like what the configuration change is. Like, what is the impact on what's being changed there on either the station at Santa Clara or the rest? Is this just the yard? How does that change, what's going to go on there? So yes, cost savings seems great, but like, it's not clear what.
Understood. Understood.
What we're
Thank you,
getting from that
Jonathan.
cost.
Tom, we'll take your first question and then we'll have Greg answer the second.
Okay, so with respect to if the twin bore might make sense here, why not try it elsewhere? One of the challenging trade-offs we find with the twin versus the single bore is single bore, in our opinion, has been designed to minimize the construction impacts on downtown and to address some of the soil conditions that are present downtown. The section that we showed on the screen that could potentially be a short twin bore has very different characteristics. It's not underneath city streets. It doesn't have nearly the density of utilities that exist downtown. And there aren't businesses that are functioning immediately on the streets whose operations might be impacted. So we thought it was a promising within that specific location. And also because of those factors, it is less expensive. I think I wish this was not true, but I don't think we can generalize that a twin bore approach would be cheaper in other parts of the alignment. If we thought that was a slam dunk, we would be proposing it elsewhere. But right now, we're focusing on places where the risk is low, and the cost savings are potentially real. I'm going to let Greg Thibault answer your second question, Jonathan.
And just to add to that, on the station configurations for single bore, if you go single bore through all three stations, we've got the same center platform configuration. And so the double bore would create a little bit more complexity if you went through the stations. As for the Newhall Yard, Jonathan, the thought here would be to have the Newhall Yard facility essentially designed as is. We just wouldn't build all of the facilities currently. So the integrity of the full yard build out would still be maintained. And if BART in the future potentially would need additional trackage, then they could go ahead and add some of those additional facilities in as the program existed in the future. What we would do is our program would send some of those maintenance activities to the other BART facilities on the alignment. And so that's why there's a trade-off with some of that O&M costs, because we would have to do some of those O&M activities in either Hayward or Concord or one of the other yards on the BART system. And so that's the real savings here is we don't build it here. We do some of those maintenance activities in other locations, but we actually have the ability to expand this yard if needed in the future. So that's how that works out.
Yeah, and maybe I won't think that. I think having some flexibility to expand is really important because this is something that BART will need to agree to. At the same time, ultimately, if that expansion isn't needed, it does free up quite a bit of land. You can see from the slide that a long-term vision for that land, if the expansion really doesn't prove to be needed, is something that would be a really interesting conversation for VTA to have with the community about development options.
Right, good point, Tom.
Okay, we have one more
Can
person.
I ask a quick,
queued up.
can I ask a quick point of order that you guys are going back and forth between online and in the room? I'm on the CWE member on the phone. I just want to make sure you guys know that. Appreciate it with the Sharks.
Okay, was that Chris on the phone you said?
Yep, it is. Yep, it sure is. At
Okay.
any point in time, it's appropriate.
Welcome, Chris. We'll consider you a virtual member, okay? I think
Thank
we
you.
had one other person with their hand up. Two other people. So can you, David, can you please ask your question or your comment?
Yes, the single bore configuration. You're digging a skinnier shaft to build the station access to the tunnel with a dual bore and having to get those boring machines out of the ground. What kind of holes do you have to dig to do that? And does the EIR cover that scenario?
Okay, we'll have Greg answer that question, David. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, David. So the north vent shaft at the 28th Street station would be utilized to both extract the single bore tunnel boring machine, as well as launch the smaller double bore scenario. So what we would likely do is we'd have the single bore machine, pulled out of that 120-foot diameter shaft that would go down to that same location, which is at the north vent shaft, for those of you guys who are aware of what happens at 28th Street. And then what we would do is launch the smaller diameter single bore machine or double bore machine that would go over to the east portal. Then we would either turn it around and bring it back to 28, or we could actually extract it from the east portal, bring it back to 28, and then launch it again. So that's how that two double bore scenario works. We would not need an additional hole. We would not need an additional shaft. We'd actually be able to utilize that north vent shaft at 28th Street for both the extraction of the single bore machine, as well as the launching of the smaller diameter double bores.
Follow-on
Alright.
question.
We have
How
time for
does-
one more question, David. So thank you.
Thank you for letting us speak as much as we wish.
Go ahead, David. I'm just letting you know time-wise that we have other station options to present. So if you have one follow-up on this one, go ahead.
Where's the muck going? At if you got this hole over at 28th Street.
So that would be part of David, this would be part of the analysis that we'd be looking at as part of the twin bore. We'd be looking at where to take the muck from there.
All right. Appreciate these comments and questions, y'all. We do have comment cards that we provided. So if you have more comments, like I mentioned, we're not gonna be able to necessarily get through them all. Okay, so write them down. We'll document them. We're gonna have staff work after the meetings, try and answer as many of them as we can, and get those back out to members. So I would like to move us along. We're at time for this item. Really appreciate this. Hopefully found this effective, and if we can't answer your questions, like Chris, for example, for your question, if we were able to answer that, you voted at 1 or 2, but maybe if the testing turned out okay, would you be like a 4 or 5? Okay, all right, so we're testing this out, so maybe at a future meeting, if we do have more time, we could do a pulse check before and after. So I just want to provide that as an example. We may not have time to do that tonight, but all right, I'm going to keep us moving forward. Next up is Greg. So Greg is going to talk to you about the criteria for the stations, give you kind of a summary overview of the things that we're looking at, and then we're going to walk you through each station individually, starting with 28. All right. we'll do a voting exercise for those CWG members as it relates to each station, okay?
Thanks, Brent. My name is Greg Tebow. I've met you, I think, at some of the other CWG member meetings in the past. So we're gonna talk a little bit about, we're gonna start with 28th Street, work our way to downtown, and then talk about Diridon. So the criteria that we used is a little different than what we used for the tunnel options that Monica brought to the table. We do have cost savings in O&M, but then there's also a real prevalent discussion about access, orientation, user experience, the ability to do future transit-oriented development or TOD, as well as the station presence. So when we talk about the stations, these are a little bit different criteria that we're using to kind of say a plus minus equal. So the same type of thing in terms of how the indicators affect it, but we've got some different categories. So keep that in mind when we go through this. The evaluation categories are definitely a little different because I think the stations have just a different presence than what is behind the scenes for the tunnel. There's really 3 different items to talk about in each station, plus at 28th Street, we're going to talk a little about the parking. At 28th, we've got 1 parking garage that we had always anticipated utilizing. We're actually have the cost saving measures to convert that to surface lot parking for now. And then eventually those will become parking spaces that will be integrated into the transit oriented development program. The other 3 things at each station we want to talk about is the first item is to look at a smaller footprint for the most part for the station head house. And that's going to be as you enter and exit the station at grade. The size and shape of that facility will be a little bit more condensed. We'll have a little bit less of the main extravagant features that we had previously looked at. Kind of get that a little bit less complex. So that's the first option. The second option here is to minimize the circular shaft that goes down to the tunnel. So right now at each station, we've got 1 large diameter shaft that goes from the street level down 70 feet to tie into the tunnel. We want to look at maybe making that a little smaller. There's some trade-offs with that, mostly related to the vertical circulation for pedestrians. So the escalator runs would be affected. So those are the things that get affected when we go with that smaller diameter shaft. And the last thing we're going to look at is another option, which is to convert to maybe a rectangular shaft. It might not be the cheapest way to go in terms of the actual subsurface excavation. A circle's more cost effective, but a lot of times when I talk about the rectangular configuration related to the escalator runs, that's really when we get back to a better escalator run scenario. So we're looking at that option. So those are the things we'll talk about today. Here's 28th Street. This is a plan view. As we hopefully most of the folks who've seen 28th Street know what I'm talking about when I say the north vent shaft. That is the upper left corner over here. That's the location I was talking about in terms of extracting and launching the single bore and double bore scenarios. That's in that upper northern eastern part of the parcel. And so what this option does is it keeps that north vent shaft where it's at. The adjacent parcel that used to have a parking garage on it, we'd actually just convert to surface parking lots. We'd have some additional surface parking over here. We would have the 5 Wounds Trail that would be integrated into the site, and then have some other parking across the street on the VTA property there. This does get us the 1,200 parking stalls that we need per the environmental commitment. And like I say, as we proceed to develop these parcels in the future, these would integrate additional parking into that development. So those could be subsurface lots. They could be, built up into podium deck parking. However, typically you see all these developments occur. All of those parking stalls will be integrated into those future TOD sites. So this saves us about $60 to $70 million of initial cost to not build that 7-story parking garage. But we still, like I say, maintain the day 1 scenario would be parking at the surface level for all the patrons.
Okay, the next candidate I've got is also at 28th Street. It looks like we've got a candidate which, like I say, reduces the diameter of that station head house a little bit. So we've got a schematic here that shows we've got a previous fairly large diameter station head house. We're gonna shrink that down just a little bit. We'll still maintain the circular configuration that, we've worked with the community working group and the design review committees on. But we definitely want to make that a little bit smaller and a little bit more efficient. Again, it kind of has some pluses and minuses, as you can see down below. But this option is about a $10 to $20 million savings, and it does not change the ability to access the tunnel itself. This goes with the same subsurface structure. The next option, not only does it shrink that head house, but it also shrinks the diameter of the tunnel shaft. So as you can see right now, the current condition is a 2 escalator scenario where you go down 2 levels to get down to the tunnel mezzanine. That's a fairly large diameter shaft, 128 feet, which is pretty big. This new configuration would go with a little bit smaller, that 108-foot diameter shaft, but we have to add 1 escalator run. So that's the real change between these two. And we know that this is a passenger experience negative. You actually have to take 2 or 3 escalators instead of 2. There are elevators. We still maintain the elevators throughout this site. There will also be stairways as well. So if you want to take the stairs, you want to take the escalator, you want to take an elevator, all of those options are available. This saves us about $15 to $30 million. And again, this does reduce the overall footprint of the station itself, as well as has those smaller footprints for the underground scenarios. And the last candidate I've got here is the rectangular configuration. This definitely keeps the 2 escalator run scenario, but instead of having a circular shaft, we've got kind of a slot or a rectangular shaft that gets us down to the tunnel. The cost of the rectangular systems are a little bit more expensive, but we think we might be able to save some money here. I know over the previous CWG member meetings, we've talked about our station's infrastructure facilities being above grade and below grade. We've gotten into a lot of complex discussions about how those are going to be above and below. We might actually be able to put some of those stations infrastructure facilities, the mechanical, the electrical equipment, back down below grade and integrate that into this kind of slot configuration. So we're working with that right now. That's why the cost savings here is TBD. We've got a little bit more work to do on this one. So these are the 4 options that we've got at 28th Street. Again, convert that parking garage to surface parking, and eventually that will be built out in terms of underground or parking garage systems for 28. We've got our simplified station entrance building. We've got our circular shaft and then the conversion of the rectangular shaft. We also want to note that per the previous CWG meetings, we've talked about the infrastructure facilities going below grade would add money. I just want to reiterate to everybody that if we do pick one of these options, we still got to come to terms with that other add that we talked about previously, which is to bring these station infrastructure facilities below grade. That would increase the cost. So I think that's all I've got for 28th Street. Now we'll open it up to the voting scenarios and then also more discussion.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So 28th Street, Little Portugal CWG members, now is your time to provide some feedback. So I'm going to ask those members in person and virtually to do voting with us as we go through these 4 options. Then we'll do feedback discussion from the CWG members, starting virtually and then in person. And then if we have a little bit of time, we'll open it up to the rest of the floor and those online. Okay, so where are you all at with the candidate to convert potentially to surface parking? You agree that this is potentially a good item? Are you in the middle? So we see a couple of fives and a three. We're just gonna ask for the members who are most familiar with their sites to vote on these. Where are we online? So we have 1, 2, and 1, 5. Okay, can we get those in-person votes up there too? I think we had, sorry, 1, 3, 1, 4. Oh, sorry, 1, 5, and 1, 3. Was there one more? No, okay. Oh, Tony was voting, but Tony's on the downtown committee. That's okay, it wasn't super clear. You all will have your time to shine as well. Okay, moving to the next one, simplify station entrance building. Okay, so this had a cost savings of 100, or sorry, yeah, 100, 10 to 20 million. All right, it will include more affordable materials, simpler roof. So online folks are already voting. 1 to 2. Folks are in the 2 to 3 range, so they're kind of in the middle, right? So they have some reservations on that. All right. Definitely need to comment, question on this. We have a 3 and a 4 in the room on this. Sounds good. I'm okay with it. Okay, where are you all at with the candidate to minimize the diameter of the circular shaft? This savings was 15 to 30. So this makes the diameter smaller. Does add an escalator run, so we have a 2 and a 3 in the room. And a couple of 3s and a 2 online. Are we getting ahead of ourselves online? We okay? A little bit, okay. Folks are voting ahead online. Wow, speedy, thank you. All right, and then the last one, to convert to the rectangular station. So Greg talked about this as being able to maintain that passenger experience with that 1 escalator run. Possibly being able to put some of those station facilities inside the structure. Okay, we don't have yet cost on this, so could we get a vote on this? So in the room, we have 2 3s. And online, we have a 2, 3, and a 4. So on most of these, we're about in the middle or in agreement. Okay, so we're going to open up the floor. We have about 5 to 6 minutes to get comments and feedback from you all. So I'm going to take virtual CWG members first. Do we have anyone lined up? One more chance for virtual CWG members. Okay. Anyone in the room? Chris, you have your hand up. Comment or question for us on these?
A question about parking. Does BART, that parking?
This is a VTA parking system. That's correct.
Well, I was thinking there was a question or answer that some of that is going to be owned by BART.
From what I understand, just like Berryessa and Milpitas, those 2 garages are operated and maintained by VTA. So it'd be the same thing for here.
Okay, thank you. And then I did have another question. Can't read my own writing. That's bad. So all these savings that we're getting, doesn't that keep us under the budget, the request of money that we wanted, the 700 million?
That's where we're trying to get to.
Okay.
To save the 700 to save the 700. So all of these things that we're talking about get us down to the 700 million in savings we're looking to achieve.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Bill in person, thank you.
Yeah, by not building the parking garage now, you do intend to build it later, right?
So what you saw on the screen is what our baseline commitment would be to build it later as the transit-oriented development came online. That said, I think we've all seen what's happened with the parking at Milpitas and especially at Berryessa, where that garage really isn't filling up at all. It might be prudent to continue with the city and the community to keep an eye on what the parking demand is. Those surface lots, if they fill on day 1, that tells us, yeah, there's a lot of demand for BART parking here, so we better get that garage built right away. If the lots don't fill up right away, and the Transitory development comes online, and there's still more parking than we need, that's a conversation, but what you saw on the slide is to build the garage once the Transitory development is there.
All right, we'll go online now. I think we have one CWG member online. Who is that?
It's David.
David, go for it. Sorry, David, I can't necessarily see, but questions or comments for us?
So if you have just surface lots, I would oppose any access from Five Wounds Lane. There'll be enough traffic there with the Cristo Rey pickup drop-offs. So be careful how you design surface lot ingress egress.
Good feedback, thank you. Did you have any other comments or questions on any of the four?
No,
Okay. Are you still in Portugal?
yes, I am.
You hear that all? Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'll open the floor for maybe one or two more questions from anyone in the room first. Anyone have any questions? Nope, okay. Anyone else raising their hand online? Nope, okay, I'm gonna keep us moving forward, all right? So next, Greg's gonna come back up and talk to you about the downtown station.
Great, thanks, Brent. Thanks, everybody, for participating in the 28th Street discussion. Downtown, so downtown station is right directly across the street from where we're at right now. The current configuration is a vaulted roof system. The proposed configuration would be more of a flatter roof configuration, similar to kind of what we had previously. It allows us to go with a little bit of a narrower station as well as a shorter station entranceway. So that's essentially what the proposal is. We're able to put some of the equipment that we had in the wing walls or the sides of the station kind of behind these screened elements. We maintain that podium level, which is kind of what we've talked about through the downtown scenario, the height above the street. That podium level, that's about where we're going to be. We still have a prominent marquee that is above the station, and we still have this option. All of the entrances facing Santa Clara, as well as facing the Paseo and the plaza on the backside, on the north side of the block. So that's essentially the proposal here. We've got a little bit of a reduced height overall of the station itself. The station gets a little simplified. We have to simplify some of the things inside the station, including some of the finishes, to get a little bit of a cost saving scenario there. The next item we've got is another candidate. This is a generally different configuration of the station itself. The previous configurations we had is one station, that facade that opens up directly onto Santa Clara. This is a little bit different. This kind of orients the station in a rectangular fashion, in a north-south fashion, and opens up a proposed station plaza area, which connects the Paseo in the back of the station out to Santa Clara Street. And it puts all of our fare gates kind of lined up here adjacent to the station. These lines, these hatches are escalators. These are 2 escalators up, 2 escalators down. They are bi-directional, but we have a total of 4. We also have stairs, and then we also have elevators. So this configuration gets away from that circular shaft. It goes with a rectangular shaft. It shifts it away from this existing historic building here, puts that a little closer to the east, and allows for this kind of new concept, which is a proposed station entry plaza between the Paseo and Santa Clara Street. We do not have a cost savings on this yet. This is kind of a new concept. We asked the team to kind of think outside the box. So we'll bring forward some costs here in short order, but this is a concept to go from a circular shaft to a rectangular shaft. Those are really the two options we've got here downtown. The biggest one obviously is to simplify the station entrance building. And then if we did go with this option, we'd also have a little bit of a simpler station entrance building. We wouldn't have it so tall, it'd be a little shorter, and we'll be able to integrate some of the things onto the roof of that facility. So those are the two options to consider for the downtown configuration.
All right, thank you, Greg. Let's get some feedback from our downtown and Diridon CWG members. So we'll be asking you for your feedback for those in person and virtual. Before we do that, I should have done this earlier. I apologize. I want to acknowledge that Director Jane, one of our board members, is here with us tonight. And we have staff from Mayor San Jose and our board chair, Shawna's office as well. So, Alejandro, thank you for being here. And we have Hope online. If I'm missing anyone virtually, put your name in the chat. Okay, so get ready, downtown CWG members. So on the first one here, simplifying the station entrance building. So where are you with this candidate? This is a cost savings of about 15 to 25. I have two fists, our first fists of the night, no way. So let's get those in person. And then virtually online, looks like we have one member maybe, and they're at 2. So reservations. So a lot of reservations and need to talk about this. So we'll have time to do that a bit of time. If you have other specific thoughts too, you can note them on those cards. All right, next one. So converting the shape of the station to a rectangular shaft. So we don't yet know the cost. This does move the station away from the historic structure. It changes the entrance location, but it does provide more access to the interior of the site where there are VTOD. So we have a 1 and a 1 in the room, and we have 2 2s online. So definitely not any agreement here tonight from our CWG members. So we now want to hear from you. All right, so we've got some time to take questions and comments. So I am going to be, let's see, I started virtual last time, so let's start in the room this time first. Bert's got his hand up. Thanks for being here, Bert.
Thank you. I guess the first thing is just the question, are these two candidates mutually exclusive? Is it, do you do one or the other? I mean, obviously, it doesn't look like you can do both. Is that right?
Great question. Greg, on this one, you want to answer?
Yeah, well, the first one is exclusive of itself, and if we go with the rectangular shaft, we would likely go with a smaller roof line. However, you'd still have a facade similar to the reconfigured design. So if that's something to note, if it looks like the community feedback here on the simplified station entrance is a no way. It looks like if we did go with a rectangular scenario, I think we would need to understand what the community working group would prefer, and that would be a more extravagant roof line. And so the cost would definitely go up with that scenario.
Any other questions in the room? Comments? Do you see any opportunities we're not talking about? Feedback? No. Okay. Anthony, member of the public, hold on there. I'm going to go to our members online first. No one wants to provide any feedback online? Okay. All right, I'm going to open it up then, since we have a little time, to other folks to ask questions or comments.
Thank you, Brent. I'm just curious, for the bore, whether it be circular or rectangular, what makes it more of a cost savings to have a rectangular bore? Is it the way it's done, or is it the amount of material that's removed?
I'll let Greg take that one.
So typically with a circular shaft, the compression of the facility as you build it kind of holds itself up. And when you have a rectangular facility, you now need to have interior braces. and steel braces that kind of keep it from collapsing on itself. We're going down 100 feet, which is a significant depth. And so when you have a cylinder, it actually kind of keeps itself together almost. And so that's where you save a little bit more money when you go with the circular. However, with that circular, we can't get the switchbacks for the escalators because you're going a little smaller. So that's why we go with the rectangular potentially to get these escalators a little bit longer. So that's the reason behind doing that. Also with the rectangular configuration, as Brent mentioned, we get it a little further east. It gets away from this historic building over here that we do not want to disturb. So that saves us a little bit of cost to try to mitigate any supportive measures we need to have for that building. So that's the real, we move it, we shift it, we elongate it, but there's some bracing, there's some interior structural components that cost a little bit more money than versus a circular shaft. So we did not offer the smaller diameter shaft for downtown because we know that 3 switchback escalator configuration is likely one of these, a no-go. So we didn't even propose that, right? So we know that that's something that, you know, this community and what, you know, the number of passengers here, we need to make sure that we get it as efficient as possible.
Oh, we gotta switch it here. I was gonna switch back to a slide just to see if anyone had any more comments on the, thank you. A sale option here, so. Just to remind everyone, on the top of the image, right, is the VTA block. So that's where the potential future TOD development will be. So this would provide access from Santa Clara Street to that space versus Market at first. Just want to make sure that that was clear to everyone, see if you had comments or questions on that. So that's why we've kind of given access and orientation, kind of more of a positive ranking here, because that's kind of a long-term view of what this option could potentially provide. Okay. Any comments online or questions, hands up? Does anyone else want to provide more feedback for staff? Okay, all right, we'll keep moving to Diridon then. Thank you all. We are on time tonight. This is great.
Great, thanks everybody. So we'll talk a little about Diridon. Same general configuration. We go with a little bit of a simplified roof. This option keeps the footprint of Diridon the same. So we go from Montgomery to Cahill, essentially the same general footprint. However, the roof line gets a little bit less complex. We had a double roof scenario before. What we would do is go with a single roof and add some and make sure there's a skylight there to bring some natural light into that station facility. This does tone down with some of the station finishes as well, but generally keeps the same layout and integrity of the station for Diridon. So that's why there's quite a few equal signs there. The next option is a very similar scenario that I described at 28th Street. We generally keep the footprint of the station the same. However, we go with a reduced diameter shaft, which would then introduce an additional switchback of escalators. Again, we keep the elevators intact. We keep the number of staircases intact, etc. But it does introduce another switchback for the escalator configuration. The savings on this is $10 to $15 million. And then this is another scenario similar to what was described at 28th and downtown. We've got more of a rectangular configuration instead of a circular configuration. This is showing one escalator run from the surface down to the tunnel. I don't know if it'll be one escalator run. It might actually need to be 2, but it wouldn't be more than 2. So this shows one long escalator down. We actually might put a short one at the top and then a second one that would come down, but we wouldn't introduce the third escalator run. We're still working on costs for this. This is a pretty significant change to the overall previous configuration. So I don't have cost savings for this, but it is essentially the layout at the station above is very similar to what we have in terms of footprint. We don't reduce the station footprint itself, but we do take the roof and make it a little bit less complex. So those are the three options we've got. I also wanted to note again, the discussion related to moving the infrastructure facilities buildings below grade versus above grade. The community working group that we presented this approximately 6 weeks ago to discuss those costs would still be something that would add. So that's one thing we're trying to mitigate. You know, if we do try to keep some of these things below grade and we can reduce the station entrance building, you know, that's the balance that we need to work through. Okay, I guess we'll get into the voting.
All right. Chris, I wanted to see if you were still online with us. Make sure you have.
Yep, I'm still. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here with. I'll wait till after the voting, but I'd love to say something.
Okay. Wherever you are, we'll picture you making fists. So. Okay. I'll make sure that you have a chance to speak, Chris. Okay, just wanted to give you a heads up.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yep, of course. So on the first one here, so similar to the other stations, idea would simplify the station entrance building. So again, lowering the rooftop garden, changing some of the aesthetic treatments. So for members in person and online, if we could get some fists. All right, so lots of no ways. Interested in that, even with the cost savings, $15 to $20 million. Virtually, are we getting any hands? Chris, did you have a hand here in agreement?
Yep. I can't see the reductions. I can't see the reductions, but I certainly want, if all the other stations have to lean into this, we have to lean into this today. So I'm interested in the discussion, in the continuation of the plan. We all have to lean into closing that gap.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Okay, all right, we'll go to minimizing circular station shaft. So this one had a $10 to $15 million savings again, so it makes the diameter of that circle a little bit smaller. It did add one escalator run, but maintains all the elevators. So in the room, we have a 2, a 4, and a fist. So we kind of have a spread there. So I'd like to hear some feedback from you all when we open up the floor. Online, any other virtual participants? Nope. Chris.
The verbal guys a three on this one. Again, everybody has to lean into these cost cuttings.
Okay, so you're kind of in the sounds good. We need to consider this king.
Yep.
Okay, all right. And then the last one for y'all on this section is to convert to rectangular station shaft. So this would be the biggest idea that kind of Greg presented to you all tonight. This is, we don't have a cost on that yet, but it would be potentially, remember, just one long escalator run. So that means more time on the escalator, or a short and long. This would change the passenger experience. So in the room, any initial thoughts on this? Okay, so we have a 3, a 1, and a 2. Again, so definitely some reservations. Chris?
Yeah, three on this one as well.
Was that a 3? Okay, great.
Yes, please.
Right. Thank you, Chris. Okay, so I think, Chris, if you have some specific thoughts, comments, or questions, we'll take those from you. It sounds like you maybe are only member online. Maybe we have one more.
Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate that each of these decisions we're going to have to make in conjunction with everybody else. We'll all have to lean into closing the 700 million. My comments stem from the conversation we had 6 weeks ago, where we're looking at kind of an expansive model and closing up more of Cahill and kind of getting a larger retail. Hopefully we've pulled back from all of that in our guidance is to do no harm to the budget, and then we can start looking at the cutback. So just love to know from you guys if all those ideas are kind of, we're going to focus just on the station and these reductions rather than looking at the expansive thing we were looking at 6 weeks ago.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about what happens to the retail or the commercial leasing space in these options?
Sure, I had a tough
Most
time I had a tough time understanding that entire statement.
Yeah,
But
really quick. 6 weeks ago, CWG was looking at from VTA some expansion of the station, making it larger, more retail, closing more of Cahill, and that was 60 million plus. My question is, it sounds like that's dead, which I would advocate for, and we're going to be looking at reductions to help the overall price gap now that we have a 700 million to close. But just rather have confirmation of that rather than have you guys do a whole presentation.
that is confirmed, and as I had said in, I think this last slide, you know, whether we're able to put a few things below grade, a few of those station infrastructure things below ground, or keep them maybe in a second level above the roof, those are things we're gonna have to kind of transpose and look at. So, we definitely would not.
That's super important. Thank you guys very much for looking at that detail as well as the overall. Let's keep focused on building a station rather than making expansive. Thank you.
Yes, that would be the intent.
Anyone else online from the downtown here at CWG? Nope, not seeing any hands raised. Okay, folks in the room, give us some feedback, some thoughts. I'm gonna take the downtown members first, Chris, then we'll have time for you. Tony.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the value of the savings versus the experience. The last place I think we should be taking money away from is the station experience. I ride a lot of BART up in the East Bay, and those stations are boring. I think the concepts I've heard before in the design presentation, design review is sort of this Grand Central Station, certainly at the Diridon and the downtown station. I think it's important to have the volume. It gives us art opportunities, I think, which are great. The orientation of the building, I think, for the downtown station, I really like it at facing Santa Clara Street. I'm not sure what that alleyway becomes, looking at the side of a historic building, and I'm not sure what that looks like. But it just seems to me we've got bus lines running up and down Santa Clara, be able to get off a bus, especially students for San Jose State, and be able to get over to the BART station without having to go around a corner. And then just the downtown area, whenever we create an alleyway, we have problems with homeless and things like that. So I think it'd just be better to keep it.
Thank you for that direct feedback. We appreciate it. I believe the width, for everyone's knowledge, of that Paseo is in the 40 to 50 range. So it's actually wider than some of our other kind of alleyways or Paseos in downtown. Any other downtown members? If not, anyone else in the room want to comment? Chris, you have your hand up. Take one more.
Thank you. I was just curious, Greg, you talked about that one section going from one long escalator to maybe the long one and a short one. Where's the short one going?
It would just go down maybe one floor and then a long one down to the tunnel. So we showed it as one long escalator in the graphic. I just want to let everybody know it might be one long escalator. It could be to a short escalator and then a longer one. Yeah.
Did you want to address some of Tony's?
Yeah, Tony, as Brent mentioned, that rectangular option for downtown is a pretty wide plaza area. It would introduce ability for queuing, people lining up to get in those fare gates. It would have site furniture, some furnishings and things like that. But I hear what you're saying. It becomes potentially a nuisance area. But it does, there were some questions previously about providing flow from Santa Clara back to the plaza, which is in the middle of all the TOD of the VTA block. And so this would provide that kind of north-south direction that we only currently have either on Market or on First. So that was one of the options the reason why it was shown as a configurational modification. So hopefully that makes a little more sense. I know that Diridon station entrance building got zeros. Do you guys have any questions about that configurational update that I can explain a little bit more thoroughly? Previously we kind of had a double roof scenario with some clear stories or lighting that would be, skylights that would kind of shine some light down. Essentially, we're just taking that off the top and providing flat skylights, which would show down to the bottom and really reduce the roof depth. The structural depth of that roof would get quite a bit smaller with that configuration change. So I just want to know if there's anything else you guys could maybe provide some feedback on as to what you would want. And what are the most important things that we can look at? So if we do have to reduce the overall roof configuration, what do you want to see? What are the things that are important? Is there a way to kind of come together on some other configuration that makes sense? And maybe that isn't right this second, but maybe it's something we can think about and we can talk about for our next CWG meeting. Yep.
Yeah, we'll definitely note that. Okay, Greg, you're not going anywhere. You got the next item. Last one for Greg, Santa Clara. So tell us about our cost saving candidate here.
Sure. Santa Clara, we've had some really great feedback with the community in Santa Clara over the last year, 2 years, well, years plus, but especially the last year. We came up with a configuration that I think really reflects some great progress. However, we would like to consider maybe a reduction of the overall square footage of that roof line. So right now we've got a fairly large roof line for that station canopy. We think we can save quite a bit of money with going with a little bit of a smaller roof line. The city of Santa Clara also asked for maybe a little bit more room on Brokaw for maybe some future work. So that could also be facilitated potentially here. But, we've got this overall footprint of the entrance building would just shrink quite a little bit. We'd still have the same plaza. We'd still keep that same roof configuration that we worked with the design review committee on. We would just have it a little bit less square footage. So that saves us about $5 to $10 million. We may have to also implement some other cost savings measures with the garage facade and some of the other things that we've worked together on. We might not be able to wrap the entire garage. Maybe we can wrap most of it. Maybe some of those garage wrappings get a little bit more efficient. So those are the configuration changes of Santa Clara. Again, the increases that we had been working with the design review committee on are shown there. And then if we go with the station entrance reductions, maybe we can kind of work our way out of this a little bit and still save some money overall.
Okay. Let's do some. Sorry about that. Thank you. Let's do some PISTA 5 voting. We have, I think, 3 members online. Okay. So we want to ask you about kind of reducing slightly the station entrance building. How come this works for everyone else, but not me? Doesn't like me. All right, we don't need the chart. We'll document that. So remember, this simplifying the building is about 15 to 20 million. And it will change the station presence a little bit, but we wanted to get some feedback. So Santa Clara members in the room, I think it's just Sean. Yeah, we got Sean in the room and then virtually as well.
Is it 5 to 10 or 15?
Yeah, sorry, did I say 5 to 10?
Well, this is 15 point, this is 5 to 10.
Make sure we're getting you the right number there. That's a good catch. Yeah, our slide says 5 to 10. I think it's in the 5 to 10, right?
5 to 10, right?
We apologize.
Yeah.
So it's 5 to 10. Precious is in the background, changing that live as we speak. Okay, so online we have a 2. So we got some reservations and we have a 4. So that could be considered. And then Sean was a 3. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna open this one up to all of our CWD members at the same time. So we have 4 of you. So Sean, if you have questions or comments, raise your hand. If there's anyone online, Jonathan or Anna. Yep. Jonathan, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is I'm gonna have to reiterate my first comment as well, which was like, it's really hard to judge just from this, what the the behavior really, or what the real change is. I guess I'd be really disappointed to see that, we spent some time trying to get some good aesthetics, and I see that you've got that on the chopping block, and it wasn't clear whether that's, something you're considering as well. The station entrance, maybe that could scale back, especially if we could do it within the context of the rest of the changes. We really would like to see, covered access from the garage. One thing I'm a little concerned about too is you mentioned like, oh yeah, we're going to go and like, put a bunch of different cladding or not cladded garage. I mean, we have this problem around the Bay where you have these horrible, ugly garages that, make areas feel, very unwalkable, and they're make areas unappealing. And, cutting that back or not having an option to hide that is a general problem you see, not just in like community developments like this, but also in, a lot of our commercial developments in the area. So I just like, it's hard to really say much about this until I have a chance to see what changes they're proposing. I guess one question is that, given that Newhall Yard has been, potentially get scaled back, rather than having a giant ugly garage, if that's where you're end up going, are there options to do surface parking to meet your parking demand? And then we could look at TOD or other, options near the station, as long as we can keep, the aesthetics or, making it really a place to be. Cause like, it's all kind of a holistic, and this is just kind of a piecemeal thing. So it's really hard to, say I'd get behind this without, more information. And I guess one other question about this whole process too is, we're looking at specific station things, but like, how does these savings compare to other options you've looked at, within the rest, what is the budget? Is like CP1, what other places are there? Where are the
Okay,
real
we'll
costs
take
of this
those.
project? Yeah, thanks.
We'll take those 3. Thank you for that. So definitely you're kind of asking, you'd like some more discussion with CWG about scaling back the station. So that's a good comment. Appreciate that. Greg, can you address the comment on kind of the garage and the surface parking?
Yeah, so right now the intent would be to keep the garage as part of the program. However, we would like to introduce some additional potential surface parking lot. So right now I think we have a 4-story garage. If we do reduce the overall yard configuration, we may actually be able to put some of that surface, some of that parking at surface levels. We still need to maintain our environmental commitment of 500 spots. So we would definitely do that. But those are some options that we have configuration changes, and that is included in the yard slide that Monica presented earlier. So the parking garage configuration would potentially be modified. As for the garage facade, again, we do have a budget to continue to facilitate an architectural treatment of the garage. It just may not be able to be the exact same configuration that we had shown before. But as you said, Jonathan, we've worked really hard with the Santa Clara community to engage and get those things shown accurately in terms of the visual presentation, and we want to try to maintain that integrity. Same with the canopy configuration. So the entrance canopy would essentially be the same configuration that we talked about. It would just be a little bit of a smaller footprint. And then I think you also mentioned coverage from the parking garage to the canopy. Yes, we would make sure we still have that coverage from the weather, that we worked hard to kind of get those things incorporated in the current design. So just think of this as maybe we added some costs to get to where we presented the DRC commitments before. We got to reduce those down a little bit. So some of those things just get a little bit smaller, but essentially the integrity of what we've discussed before, I think we're really going to try to maintain.
Thank you for the direct feedback, Jonathan. Appreciate it. I think Sean, in the room, you had your hand up.
What impact would this scaling down have on the surrounding site? I think you answered that question.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. One more person online.
So Anna Vargas Smith asked, when can we see the changes to the design that was submitted? I'm assuming that's the DRC, so that we can make more informed decisions.
I just wanted to reiterate the importance of that design. There was a lot of intense discussions that went into that very unique, one-of-a-kind design, and you all came back brilliantly with solutions. So we're just concerned about how that's going to impact what we've all created together here. It means a lot to
Understood, yeah.
Yes.
And you know, we're talking about, as the team is iterating on these, to continue to engage with you, right? So we'll be having additional board meetings, and workshops, and then we're planning something potentially for the larger community in October as well. So we may have some more advancements or changes there that we can share with you.
Since
Thank
I'm
you.
new to this group, yeah,
Thank you.
sorry. Since I'm new to this group, I want to be respectful of the work the rest of the community, that the working group did. I probably moved my vote down to a 2.
Okay,
And address those reservations.
all right, let's move Sean down to a 2. Thank you, Sean, for acknowledging that. They have put in a lot of time.
Yeah, and I was part of a lot of those discussions, so I feel your pain, and we spent a lot of time getting where we got to. And, you know, we need to make sure that, that we have the budget available to do that. However, we do need to kind of pull some things in, and it's across all the stations. I think Jonathan mentioned what's being saved on CP1. Well, Monica presented a lot of those requirements are in the $60 to $90 million range. So that's a lot of savings that we're looking at there. We're looking at a lot of savings on the tunnel cost. You know, these stations are $15 to $20 million each, but you got 4 of them. They add up to the same $100 million or so that we kind of have across the other board. So
Can you remind everyone what CP1 is, Greg?
CP1 is the systems contract. So that's going to be kind of the contract that will bring in all of the conduits, all of the heavy electrical equipment, all the train control, all the elements of work that essentially control and operate the train system itself. So all the elements that really BART has control over, that's what the CP1 contract is.
Thank you all. Time for maybe just one more from the broader group. Any other CWG members? Any thoughts? Okay. Anyone online? Hands up? Okay. Give yourself a deep breath. That was a lot of new content. And we tried something new, and we're only 1 minute behind schedule. So, thank you all. This was not going to be the last time we're engaging on these items. I just want to reiterate, this is a check-in with you all, so we really appreciate this initial feedback. Again, I could briefly talk about these before, but in October, we don't have a date yet, but identifying some broader community meetings so that you all invite your constituents or larger groups to that space as well to give us feedback. And then we have our November meetings coming up as well. And we'll be sharing some more updates with our board in October in the coming weeks as well. Okay. So next I'm going to have Bernice come up, and she's going to talk to you about the progress we made on the referral we received from the board about our process and how we engage you all as CWG members.
Thank you, Brad. So I wanted to do an update on the board referral that we got back in May from our board of directors. And that referral had specific mention of how we work with and engage our community working group members. And one of the examples of one of the actions that we've implemented is the fact that this evening we are offering both a in-person and virtual meeting. We heard that there was a desire to resume in-person meetings. We took a poll with the group, and while there was a significant amount of members that wanted to attend in person, there were also some members that really, because of work situations and commutes, really preferred to have that virtual option. So we will continue with both the in-person and virtual option for our meeting. Also, it was requested that we have an external facilitator. We are working on the RFP. We need to go through that formal process to engage an external facilitator. And then this evening's meeting is another example of us providing the materials, which we have always done in advance of the meetings, but really not only now providing the materials, but really vetting the information through our community working group and having it be a key conduit, and then relaying that information on to our board members and committee members. So we also got an additional referral in August related to our CWG meetings. And that referral really was looking at ensuring that our community working group members are fully engaged and that we have opportunities for them to really have meaningful discussions. So I hope that tonight with our polling really showed an example of how we're really trying to make these meetings more interactive rather than just providing the information. We really are doing our best to seek your feedback and really hear your positions and your reasoning and rationale for some of the positions you are taking. So we have done a plan to talk about how we can have more interactive meetings and more dedicated staff. And we are working on that plan right now, and different methods for re-engaging our CWG members. So one of the things that we've done is to have more interactive meetings is we've identified 17 strategies, and those strategies are based on the areas of informing our CWG members, consulting with them like we've done this evening, and then involving our CWG members in the project as it progresses through the various phases. As we are advancing in the project, we're going to be engaging our CWG members on things like our construction transportation management plans, having them get a little more involved. I know there was much overlap between our design review committees, but really engaging our CWG members in our design review committees and other key activities. Another thing will be having you look and have the information before our board meetings as well as our oversight committee meetings. So to re-engage our CDBG members, we are continuing like we have, but really wanting to make sure we let all our members know when the meetings are, and we do our work plan for the year ahead, and making sure we do email reminders so that everyone stays on top of when the meetings are, confirming their availability for the next meetings, sharing all of the meeting updates, and then continuing with our quarterly meetings. We also are reaching out to new organizations and also trying to engage some younger adults and even high school students to really get a young adult perspective for those who are really going to be utilizing this future system. Reaching out to the organizations that have had members and making sure with members now knowing the time commitment and the higher level of involvement that they are up for a new, more engaging challenge. That's my last slide. So continuing with our chairs, like we have been, vetting the information, utilizing our chairs to help plan the meetings, clarifying our staff roles. We are going to be having more dedicated staff focusing on the specific station areas. And we will be implementing that professional facilitator. Brent, I think I'm done to you.
Bernice did cover a couple of these, but these are some of the major items we'll be engaging the CWGs on moving forward. So these are really opportunities for, excuse me, detailed feedback from you all in the coming months. All right. So we did want to just, again, do one last check-in for the day to see kind of where we're at, where you're all at with kind of some of the strategies and ideas for furthering to engage with you. Sound like we're in the right place. You're in agreement with some of the things, more engagement, more collaboration that Bernice talked about. Do you have other ideas? Middle, talk about things. So for those in the room, where are you at? Let's see, a 1, 4, 4, 5, and 2 3s. Okay. All right, so we have a little bit of spread there. So some folks feel like we have some more work to do. Some folks feel like we're doing pretty good at engaging you all, so that's good direct feedback for us on the external affairs team. Then we have a couple of people voting online, 4s and 5s, so they're feeling like they're involved, getting information. And again, another one. Oh, change their vote. Okay. Do you all have any comments or questions? I'll start in the room first. CWG members first, and then says, I won't forget you. Chris.
Well, I just wanted to say, I'm sure David, is he still in Portugal? So he'll probably agree with me. So since we're doing so good on time, because you know, everybody heard earlier when David was saying, thank you for allowing us to get as much time as we need to speak.
Yes.
So we're going in the right direction and we're saving time. You know, we gotta read the room. Can you allow members to even speak even longer or have more questions if possible? I think we should be able to extend that.
Thank you, Chris. I'll take that feedback for being as the facilitator to make sure that I don't cut people off next time. So thank you for that.
This is kind of more like a logistics question. Usually concurrency and phasing is always desirable as opposed to cutting. It's possible. And it looks like you guys made some really good strides that way. A project this big, is it feasible to actually look at doing multiple stations at a time? And try to get some economies of scale with larger contracts, getting materials and things done earlier, because as we know, the longer we go, escalation costs get to be too much. Just don't know logistical. Like I look at the Deardown station and the downtown station, something that might work sometimes if it's close enough. One contract can handle all of that, but just wondering if that's been looked at from the standpoint of concurrency.
One of our team members want to take that? All stations, one contract? Or some? Multiple packages?
Yeah, so the fundamental breakdown of the project is 4 packages. One for the systems, one for the tunnel and trackway, one for the stations, and then one for all the work above ground in Santa Clara, the yard of the Santa Clara station. So I guess that's a long way of saying there's a single contract which will be responsible for all 3 of the underground stations. Now, we're still only about 16% through the design there, so I don't think we have yet figured out. Will they get broken out into additional subcontracts? What's the concurrency or the sequence of that work? I think there's a lot more work to be done in that, and a lot of that will actually come up when we get into our construction traffic management plans, which will also have a big role for CWG development.
Okay, questions or comments from folks online, and then we'll take subs in the audience. None? Okay, subs, question or comment?
Yeah.
Director Jane, I apologize.
Okay, before I became board member, I was a CWG member for 3 years. And my experience was that it was really a one-way communication. And I think the board has recognized that we want to get more feedback. I'll just give you the example of the Santa Clara station. We used to have an above grade concourse so that Santa Clara residents would have to go down a flight of stairs, up 2 flights of stairs, and down a flight of stairs. And by pushing and pushing, we were able to get an at-grade concourse, which Santa Clara residents only do 1 flight down and 1 flight up, and it saved us $75 million. And the reliability, the O&M costs are better. We've been pushing for more aesthetics for our station, and I think we're getting there. You know, public projects like this should not just be, I mean, the North Berkeley station is terrible. They should be somewhat iconic. They should be something where you can easily find the station if you're walking down the street. And we shouldn't compromise on those. But I think one of the things as we go forward, we're relying on the CWGs for it, is to get these messages out to the public. So what I'm asking staff to do is to create canned messages that then CWG members can then email or Facebook post out to their communities. Because I don't think, at least when I was on a CWG, I very rarely sent any of the information out to the community. And what we really want is for this information to get out to the community. So whatever it takes. And one thing we did on Monday was we did a tour of the Little Portugal station. So we had CWG members out there and we got to see the site. When you're sitting there on the site, you look at, you know, 101 there and you see the Five Wounds Church we're trying to get sight lines to the Five Wounds Church, wherever you are in this TOD development, so you can find your way around as you're walking around. So I think we're gonna do more site tours for more people at Little Portugal, and CWG members should insist on that for your stations.
Great feedback, and good idea on the toolkits for sharing project information. That is one of the ideas in the referral, so thank you for confirming that. And there's always interest for tours, and they really do open up people's eyes and allow you to see the scope of things. See Bill shaking his head, he was out of the tour as well, so we will all try to do more tours for CWG members, should they like to have those, bring them out to the site. Santa Clara has some difficulties because we are under construction there, but we can stand on maybe the Caltree platform or out in Brokaw and so on. So. All right, any last comments before we do CWG report out? John, was that hand? Sorry. Nope, okay. Anyone online? All right. Members, now is your time. If there's anything that you would all like to share, do you have meetings or events? I see Chris hand went straight up, so she's got something exciting to share with us. Go for it.
Well, thank you, Chris Patterson Simmons for East Village, San Jose. We just did a rebrand. So it was East Santa Clara Street Business Association. Now it's East Village, San Jose. We had, I did my first press conference the day after Labor Day. It was beautiful. So now we do have social media. So now we can post everything that's there. It's for him. And so I'm excited about that because that was always an issue too. And so whenever I did do a meeting, City Hall, they would also post for me whenever we share any information about this BART VTA project. And so any meeting I have, they know what's going on too. And so it's a good thing. It's going to be even more broadcast. So thank you for reiterating that, to just let you know we're on board with all of that. Because it's about letting the community know what we're doing. It's a good thing. I've been doing this, I've been on this, how long? Since 2017.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep telling people. And I hope I'm around until it gets finished. So I agree with him. Let's double this thing. Get projects going 2 at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I got to see Chris at Viva Kaya the other weekend. She was hosting a fashion show. I missed the fashion show. It was so great to see you out there and be able to wave at you on my bike. So that was awesome. Any other news or announcements from CWG members? Anything really exciting you want to share? Okay, nothing online? All right. So as Bernice did share as one of those kind of follow-ups, we're going to be starting to follow up a little bit more with members on your committees who aren't attending. So our team, our external affairs team is going to start to make those calls, start to just, try and get some of our CWG members back in the fold so we can increase this to 5, get those more feedback from you all, and get them at the table, and or ask them, why they're not attending. So we'll keep you and the chairs in the loop on that.
I wanted to mention something also. Thank you, VTA BART, Community Outreach Group, who will be tabling at the Santa Clara Parade of Champions. It's our 55th year. Our presenting sponsors are the 49ers, so we're expecting thousands there, and we appreciate your support of that event, legacy event, for the past 3 years. You guys are really doing a great job of connecting with the community at all the places that they gather. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for that. I know that's one of our favorites. Love parades.
Great.
Oh, Tony has one more thing.
One more thing, just on behalf of the chamber, certainly welcome those that are not members to consider membership, especially small businesses. We're working on creating good information distribution, especially for small business along this line, because there's hundreds of businesses that get impacted by what's going to happen here. And we're trying to create awareness, provide relief, just things that we can do with our small businesses, especially so we can get through this, because I think they'll benefit from the outcome ultimately. But we want to use the chamber as certainly a way to get messaging out to all of our members and increase that membership and offer some abilities for people to, especially small business, to engage.
Yep, as a past chamber board member, they have a lot of resources for small businesses, so if you have questions, come to Tony, for sure. Okay, so proposed meeting for November. Again, we'll give you another general update and hopefully we can have some refinements on these cost candidates for you all based on your feedback. Really thank you all so much tonight. We'll have an update on construction. Remember, we are doing construction in Santa Clara. We've got those excavators out there. We've got the water trucks out there. There's a lot of personnel on site working really hard every day. And we'll have an update on community engagement as well. All right, so thank you for your time. Staff will be around to mix and mingle for a little bit if you'd all like to. Have a good evening.